My name is Victoria Chin. I'm 29 years old. And exactly 3 hours after Forbes published my company's $47 million Series B funding announcement, my mother called me 23 times in a row. I didn't answer a single call. The last voicemail she left was at 11:47 p.m., her voice shaking with desperate fury. "Victoria, your father and I need to talk to you immediately about this publicity stunt you've pulled. This affects the entire family's reputation." Publicity stunt. That's what she called 8 years of 90-hour work weeks, sleeping in my car between investor meetings, and building an AI-powered logistics platform from my laptop in coffee shops while my parents told everyone I was still figuring things out. The same parents who, just 6 months before my face appeared on Forbes for that $47 million deal, had literally locked me in their garage like an embarrassing dog they needed to hide away during a family gathering because I showed up in my old Honda Civic. "We can't have the neighbors seeing you pull up in that piece of garbage," my father had said, his hand firm on my shoulder as he guided me through the side door. "Stay here until everyone leaves. Your brother's investors are here, and we can't have them thinking our family is struggling." I sat in that garage for 4.5 hours, surrounded by boxes of my childhood belongings, listening through the thin walls as they bragged about my younger brother Derek's marketing career at a mid-tier pharmaceutical company. Before I explain what happened when that Forbes article went live and destroyed their carefully constructed family narrative, let me know where you're viewing from and hit subscribe if you've ever been the family member whose success came too late for them to take credit for it. To really understand why my parents felt entitled to lock me in their garage like an unwanted animal, you'd have to go back 8 years to when I dropped out of my corporate consulting job to start TechFleet Solutions. My parents, Kenneth and Patricia Chun, had built their entire identity around appearing successful to their social circle in Lexington, Massachusetts. My father was a semi-retired insurance broker who spent more on his BMW lease than he'd saved for retirement. My mother was a former real estate agent who hadn't closed a sale in 6 years but still carried business cards. They had exactly one success story. My brother Derek, 3 years younger, who'd landed what they considered a prestigious job at Morrison Pharma after graduating from a state school. His starting salary was $68,000. To hear my parents tell it at dinner parties, he was practically running the company. Derek's in pharmaceutical marketing. My mother would announce to anyone within earshot. Very competitive field. They recruited him specifically. What she didn't mention was that Derek lived in their basement, drove a car they'd co-signed for, and had his phone bill paid from their checking account. At 26 years old, he was their golden child. I, on the other hand, was their problem that needed to be hidden. When I quit my $95,000 consulting job to build a startup, my father's response was immediate. "You're throwing your life away for some fantasy. This is embarrassing, Victoria. What am I supposed to tell people when they ask what you're doing?" "Tell them I'm building a company," I'd said. "I'll tell them you're between opportunities," he'd replied flatly. "That sounds better." My best friend since college, Rachel Wu, saw the dynamic clearly from the beginning. "They've built their entire social currency around bragging about their kids," Rachel had said after I'd excitedly told my parents about leaving consulting. "And you just became worthless to them because you can't be packaged into a neat story for their country club friends." The pattern established itself quickly. Every family gathering became a performance where Derek was the star, and I was either invisible or a cautionary tale. Thanksgiving 2018, my Aunt Linda asked how my computer thing was going. Before I could answer, my father jumped in. "Victoria's still exploring options," he'd said smoothly, as if I wasn't sitting right there. "She'll find something stable eventually." At that exact moment, I had 2 Fortune 500 companies testing my platform's beta version and a VC firm scheduled to hear my pitch in January. I'd been working 16-hour days for 9 months straight, living on instant ramen and coffee, sleeping 4 hours a night. But in their narrative, I was just exploring options. Christmas 2019 was worse. Derek announced he'd gotten a promotion to Senior Marketing Associate, a title bump with a $4,000 raise. My parents threw him a celebration dinner at their favorite steakhouse, inviting extended family and close friends. I found out about the dinner from my cousin's Instagram story. When I called my mother to ask why I hadn't been invited, her response was ice cold. Derek's accomplishment deserved a proper celebration with people who understand professional success. "We didn't think you'd be comfortable given your situation. My situation. I just signed my first major client, a regional shipping company paying $182,500 annually for my platform. It was my breakthrough moment. But I hadn't told my parents yet, because I'd learned that sharing good news with them was like feeding information into a machine that only output criticism. By early 2021, TechFleet Solutions had 12 corporate clients, $2.4 million in annual recurring revenue, and 8 employees. I'd been featured in Boston Business Journal as an emerging tech entrepreneur. When I'd sent my parents the article, excited and hoping for acknowledgement, my mother had texted back 3 days later, "Nice, dear. Your father and I are in Florida for a golf weekend. Derek's girlfriend might be the one." That was it. The article had called me one of Boston's most promising young entrepreneurs to watch. My mother's response was 12 words about golf and my brother's dating life. The garage incident happened in June 2022 at what was supposed to be a casual family barbecue. I'd driven over in my 2011 Honda Civic, the same reliable car that had gotten me through college in my startup years. I wasn't ashamed of it. It ran well, was paid off, and I'd rather invest in my business than a car payment. But when I pulled into their driveway, my father had practically sprinted out, his face flushed with panic. "Derek's investors are here," he'd hissed, grabbing my arm. "Morrison's senior VP and his wife. You can't be seen in this." "Dad, it's just a car," I'd said, confused. "It reflects poorly on the family," he'd snapped. Then he'd physically steered me toward the side garage door. "Just wait in here until they leave. Please, Victoria. Don't make this harder." And I'd let him do it. I'd let my father guide me into their garage like a shameful secret, like some embarrassing pet that needed to be hidden from company. I'd sat on a dusty folding chair surrounded by cardboard boxes labeled Victoria's old stuff, listening to muffled laughter from the backyard while my parents entertained my brother's colleagues. They'd locked me away like a dog that embarrassed them, and I'd accepted it without fighting back. Through the thin wall, I could hear my mother's voice. "Yes, Derek is our youngest. Such a go-getter. His sister is. Well, she's going through a phase. You know how young people are. A phase. 8 years of my life, dismissed as a phase. I sat in that garage until 9:30 p.m., until I heard cars leaving. When I finally emerged, my mother was in the kitchen wrapping leftover food. "Oh, good. You can take some potato salad home," she'd said, as if I'd just been running an errand instead of imprisoned in her garage for 4.5 hours. I didn't take the potato salad. I didn't say a word. I just left, drove back to my apartment, and made a decision. I was done trying to earn their approval. Whatever happened with my company from that point forward, they would no longer be part of my success story. Rachel came over that night after I'd called her, crying angry tears. "That's it," she said firmly. "You're done with them. Completely done. They've shown you exactly who they are. Believe them." She was right. But breaking free of the hope that your parents will eventually love you the way you need them to, that's harder than building any company. The year following the garage incident was when everything accelerated. TechFleet Solutions landed a contract with Wellington Freight, one of the largest logistics companies on the East Coast. The deal was worth $3.2 million over 3 years. We hired a VP of sales, expanded our engineering team to 15 people, and moved into a proper office with a view of the Charles River. I didn't tell my parents about any of it. I stopped sending updates, stopped trying to share my wins, stopped hoping for validation that was never coming. My mother would occasionally text, "Haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" I'd respond, "Fine. Busy with work." She never asked follow-up questions. Meanwhile, the family group chat was active daily with updates about Derek. Photos of Derek at company events. Screenshots of Derek's LinkedIn posts about marketing campaigns. My mother's commentary, "So proud of our boy." In November 2022, I closed a series of funding round. $8.5 million from Clearbridge Ventures. My company was valued at $34 million. We'd gone from my laptop and coffee shops to a legitimate, funded, fast-growing business in just under 7 years. Rachel insisted we celebrate. "You did it," she'd said, raising her wine glass. And they missed all of it because they were too busy measuring success by whether someone has a fancy job title at someone else's company. "Should I tell them?" I'd asked. "Why?" Rachel had challenged. "So they can minimize it. So they can make it about Derek? Vic, you don't need their approval anymore. But there was still a part of me that wanted them to know. I compromised. I'd tell them at Christmas, casually, and their reaction would determine everything going forward. Christmas 2022 was at my parents' house. Derek was there with his girlfriend Amanda. The living room was full of wrapped presents, most piled under a section clearly designated as Derek's area. My gift from my parents was a $50 Amazon gift card. Derek got $1,200 golf clubs. During dinner, my father asked Derek about his trajectory at Morrison Pharma. Derek spent 20 minutes talking about a potential lateral move. My parents hung on every word. "What about you, Victoria?" my Aunt Linda had asked. "How's your computer business?" This was my moment. I took a breath and said, as casually as I could manage, "It's going really well. We just closed a series of funding round. Raised $8.5 million. The table went silent. My father's fork paused halfway to his mouth. $8.5 million, Aunt Linda repeated. "Victoria, that's incredible." "It's venture capital," my father said dismissively. "That's not the same as earning money. That's other people's money you have to pay back." "That's not how venture capital works, Dad," I'd said quietly. "It's equity investment. We don't pay it back, they own a percentage." Still, my mother interjected, "It's very risky. Startups fail all the time. Derek has real job security. The company's valued at $34 million now," I added. "We have 22 employees and contracts with Fortune 500 companies. Valuation isn't real money," my father said firmly. "It's just numbers on paper until you sell." That was it. That was their response to the biggest achievement of my professional life. Not congratulations, not curiosity, not even basic acknowledgement. Just immediate dismissal and comparison to Derek's real job. I left an hour later, claiming an early meeting. Rachel's response when I texted her, "Done? Are we done with them now?" "Yes," I typed back. "We're done." But the universe wasn't done with me yet. In February 2023, Forbes reached out to do a profile on tech fleet solutions for their 30 Under 30 issue. A full-feature article about how we were disrupting the logistics industry. The journalist spent 3 hours interviewing me, visiting our office, reviewing our growth metrics. "This is an incredible story," she'd said. "Self-funded for the first 2 years. Profitability before Series A, triple-digit year-over-year growth." The article went live on a Tuesday morning in March at 6 a.m. By 7:30 a.m., my LinkedIn had exploded with connection requests. Rachel had sent me 15 celebratory emojis. My team had decorated the office with printouts. And at 9:47 a.m., my mother called. Then again at 10:02 a.m. Then 10:15 a.m. By noon, I had 23 missed calls from her, 17 from my father, 8 from Derek, and text messages that evolved from "call me immediately" to "we need to discuss this Forbes situation" to "your father and I are very upset." I didn't call back. Instead, I drafted an email to both parents and copied Derek. "I've spent 8 years trying to earn your respect while building a company you refused to acknowledge existed. You locked me in your garage 6 months ago like an embarrassing dog because my card didn't fit the image you wanted to project. You've dismissed every achievement, minimized every milestone, and made clear that my success only matters if it reflects well on you. The Forbes article is not a situation that affects you. It's documentation of what I built despite you, not because of you. I'm done trying to be the daughter you wanted. I'm successful, I'm proud of what I've built, and I no longer need your permission to exist as I am. Please don't contact me unless you're ready to have an actual conversation about why you've treated me this way." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Rachel, reading over my shoulder, whispered, "Finally." The response came in under an hour from my father. "This is a gross overreaction to slights that were never intended. Your mother and I have always been supportive, but you've been distant for years. The garage incident was a misunderstanding you're using as ammunition. We're proud of your accomplishments, but this public article has brought unwanted attention. Derek's colleagues have been asking questions, causing complications for him professionally. We think it's best if we all take time apart until you're ready to discuss this rationally like an adult." I read it 3 times. They'd managed to make my Forbes feature about how it inconvenienced Derek. They turned 8 years of dismissal into me being distant. They'd reframed locking me in a garage as a misunderstanding. The gaslighting was so blatant, it would have been comical if it weren't so devastating. But here's what they didn't know. We were in final negotiations for Series B funding. $47 million from Greystone Capital and two co-investors. The deal would value TechFleet Solutions at $180 million. The announcement went public 3 weeks later. On a Thursday at 9 a.m., TechCrunch broke it first, followed by Forbes, Wall Street Journal, and Bloomberg. $47 million Series B for TechFleet Solutions signals major disruption in logistics tech. By 10 a.m., my phone was unusable. Hundreds of LinkedIn notifications, dozens of emails, and yes, 23 missed calls from my mother in 3 hours. The voicemail started desperate and shifted to angry, ending with that 11:47 p.m. message about my publicity stunt affecting the family's reputation. I saved every voicemail, screenshot every text. And then I did something I should have done years ago. I blocked their numbers. Both of them, and Derek too. Rachel came over that night with champagne. "How does it feel?" she'd asked. "Like I can finally breathe," I'd answered. Over the next 2 months, my parents tried everything. They sent Derek's girlfriend Amanda to my office with a letter. I politely declined. "I'm sorry, Amanda, but I can't accept this. Please don't let them use you as a messenger." They contacted Rachel on Facebook, asking her to talk sense into Victoria. She blocked them and sent me screenshots of the message thread. "Your mother actually wrote, 'We gave her everything, including shelter when she needed it,'" Rachel had said, reading the messages with disgust. The audacity to mention shelter after they literally locked you in the garage. They even showed up at my office building one Tuesday. The receptionist called me. "There are 2 people here claiming to be your parents, Kenneth and Patricia Chin. They don't have an appointment, but they're insisting." "Tell them I'm in meetings all day," I'd said. "If they don't leave, call building security." They left, but not before my mother left a note. "You're destroying this family with your stubbornness. What would people think if they knew how you're treating your parents? We only asked you to wait in the garage for a few hours, and you're acting like we committed a crime. Call us before you ruin everything." I kept that note too, added it to the file of their dysfunction. 3 months after the Series B announcement, Derek reached out via LinkedIn with a surprisingly honest message. "Vic, I know we're not talking and I get why. Mom and Dad have been losing their minds, playing the victim hard. Dad's been telling everyone that success has made you cold and ungrateful. He keeps bringing up the garage thing like it was no big deal. We just asked her to wait inside for a bit. I thought you should know what they're saying. Also, for what it's worth, I looked up your company after everything came out. What you've built is actually really impressive, and I'm sorry I never said that before. I just always went along with whatever they said about you being in a phase. That was shitty of me." I stared at that message for a long time. Derek, the golden child, was apologizing. It didn't fix anything, but it was something. I responded, "Thanks for saying that. I appreciate you being honest about what they're saying. I'm not ready to reconnect with the family yet, but I appreciate you reaching out." He replied, "I get it. Take your time. Or don't. Whatever you need." 6 months after going no contact, I hired an executive coach, Dr. Sarah Martinez. "I want to make sure I'm not becoming the thing I'm running from," I told her. "My parents were so worried about appearances they couldn't see me as a real person." "The fact that you're asking that question suggests you're already different," she'd said. "But let's explore it." That led to months of work unpacking my childhood, the patterns I'd internalized, learning to separate my self-worth from my parents' approval. "They taught you that love is conditional," Dr. Martinez had said, "that you have to earn it through achievement. Unlearning that, learning that you're worthy just as you are, that's the real work." I was doing that work when, 1 year after the Forbes article, my mother had a heart attack. Not massive, but significant enough for 3 days in the hospital. My Aunt Linda called. "I'm not calling to pressure you. I'm just informing you because you deserve to know. She's stable, full recovery expected. No obligation to do anything with this information." I sat with that for 48 hours. The old Victoria would have rushed to the hospital immediately. The new Victoria had to make a more intentional choice. I sent flowers with a card. "Glad you're recovering. Wishing you health." No signature. My father responded via email. "Your mother is asking for you." This is a time for family to come together. Whatever disagreements we've had can be set aside. She needs her daughter right now. I responded, I'm glad she's recovering. I'm not ready to resume contact beyond what I've already offered. I hope you can respect that boundary. His response was immediate and furious. You're punishing your mother during a health crisis because your feelings were hurt over something as minor as waiting in a garage. This is cruel, Victoria. Unforgivably cruel. The guilt hit hard, exactly as he'd intended. But I'd learned to recognize manipulation. I forwarded the email to Dr. Martinez without responding. Her reply was swift. This is emotional blackmail. He's using your mother's health to override your boundaries. Notice he's still minimizing what they did. Something as minor as waiting in a garage. You can wish her well without sacrificing your well-being. Stay strong. I didn't respond. My mother recovered fully within a month. That brings us to now. 18 months after the Forbes article, 15 months no contact. TechFleet Solutions has 89 employees, contracts with 7 Fortune 500 companies, and we're in discussions about acquisition offers that would value the company north of $300 million. I'm 29 years old, and I built this without my parents' support, approval, or acknowledgement. Derek and I have cautiously reconnected, coffee every few months, carefully avoiding our parents. He's engaged to Amanda now, planning a wedding my parents are funding for $58,760. I haven't been invited, and I'm completely fine with that. My parents, according to the family grapevine, have constructed elaborate stories. To their social circle, we always knew Victoria had potential. We supported her through those difficult early years. To family members, we're wounded parents who don't understand why our successful daughter has cut us off over one small misunderstanding. The truth they'll never acknowledge is simpler. They couldn't see my worth when it wasn't packaged in a way that served their narrative. They locked me in a garage like an embarrassing animal because my car didn't fit their image. They dismissed 8 years of building a company. And when my success became too big to ignore, they tried to claim ownership while simultaneously resenting that it complicated their family story. I don't hate them. That's what I've learned through therapy and distance. I don't hate them, but I also don't need them. I've built a life and company without their blessing. I've learned that family isn't just biology. It's the people who show up for you, who see you clearly, who celebrate your wins without needing to diminish them. Rachel is my family. My Aunt Linda is my family. My team at TechFleet is my family. These are the people who knew my worth before Forbes published it. The garage incident taught me something valuable. Sometimes people will try to lock you away because your existence in its fullness is inconvenient to the image they're projecting. The work of a lifetime is learning to walk out of that garage and into the sunlight, regardless of whether anyone is there to welcome you. My parents locked me in a garage like a dog because they were ashamed of where I was. 6 months later, my face was on Forbes for a $47 million deal, and they called it a publicity stunt that complicated their lives. The irony isn't lost on me. Neither is the lesson. The people who can't see your value when you need them most will always find a way to diminish your success when it arrives. And that says everything about them and nothing about you. I sleep well at night now. My company is thriving. My boundaries are firm. And I've finally learned the difference between being someone's daughter and being someone's accomplishment. I'm building a legacy on my own terms, without needing permission from the people who locked me in their garage. Have you ever had to step away from family members who couldn't celebrate your success? Have you been locked in a metaphorical, or literal, garage by people who claim to love you? Share your story in the comments below. I read every one, and your experiences matter. And if this resonated with you, hit subscribe and that notification bell. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is simply refuse to stay hidden in someone else's garage while you build your own empire in broad daylight. Thanks for being here.